Welcome to Loud Cry Ministries, and I'm your host, Lucas Cameron, and I'd like to thank you for joining us on another Sabbath cast. Today we're going to be talking about the prophecies of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. And hopefully by the end of this presentation you are going to see that we have a sovereign creator that rules this universe, and he has knew the end from the very beginning, and he has revealed it to his servants the prophets that is written in the scripture, so that we can see it today in our generation and know right where we stand in history and what we need to be doing with our lives. Now this will be, today on this Sabbath cast we'll be doing Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel 7. And then the next Sabbath cast we meet, I'm going to be doing Revelation chapter 13 and Revelation chapter 17. And hopefully by the end of this presentation and the next one, you will see who the enemies of our Creator is, and you will see that we are living at the very edge of the end of time, and we need to be preparing our souls to meet our Creator. Now if you want to flip open your scripture to Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar was the king of the Babylonian Empire. And he had a dream. And he told it to his wise men, his soothsayers, and all those that practiced divination and all that. He told them, he said, I had a dream. And I want you to tell me the dream and the interpretation thereof. And his soothsayers said, only the Creator in heaven, only the God in heaven can reveal these things that you ask. No man can reveal this to you. So, at that point, from the intro of the chapter, from verses 1 through 12, pretty much bring you up to that point. Now, verses 13 through 30 bring you to the point where Daniel goes in to see the captain of the guard, and he explains to him that if he'll give him time in the presence of Nebuchadnezzar, if he'll give him an opportunity to speak with him, that if he'll grant him the time that he can go and pray, he will reveal the thing to the king, what he asks. And so Daniel goes and he prays, and the Creator in heaven, the only time I've ever found this recorded in Scripture, that the Creator in heaven gave a man a dream, and he also gave another man the same dream. And Daniel got the dream and the explanation thereof, what it meant. So he goes to talk to Nebuchadnezzar, and he tells him, beginning in chapter 2, verse 38, he says, Nebuchadnezzar, thou art this head of gold. He tells him that he is the very first kingdom. That what he saw, this great image, that this image that he saw, there was the gold at the head, that his arms were of silver, and that his belly and his thigh was of brass, the legs were of iron, and the toes of the image were mixed with iron and miry clay. And he goes on to explain to Nebuchadnezzar that after his kingdom is past, after his time is come and gone, that there'll come 3 other kingdoms after him, inferior each time as it progresses. And we go to find out that these 3 kingdoms later, as I'll prove to you through Scripture, are Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. Now, Daniel goes on to tell him in the end that there will be a great stone cut without hands that smites the image, and it fills the whole earth. This is the kingdom of the Creator coming to take over what is His, and what the Messiah will reign over throughout all eternity. And His kingdom is coming, and there's no stopping it. You can either choose to be a part of it, or choose to be turned to ash one day in the presence of Him, because there's only 2 options, ladies and gentlemen. So, chapter 7, moving on, Daniel has a dream by himself. He sees a vision. He sees 4 beasts, and the Scripture goes on to explain that these are 4 kingdoms that will rise in the earth. This is a parallel of the first dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. It's just like Joseph had when he explained to Pharaoh that the 7 goodly cows, and then the 7 bad cows that ate them, and then the 7 good ears of corn, and then the 7 bad ears that took them away. Those were parallels. Well, the same thing takes place here between these 2 chapters. It's parallels, or what they are. And he goes on to, the Scripture goes on to state that Daniel 7 and 4, that there was a lion with eagle's wings. Now I have some examples here, and at the end of this presentation, when we have the buffer music word that we would for the podcast, I'm going to let that ride on through on YouTube, and I'm going to put up images of some of the archaeology, and then I'm going to put up the images of the 4 kingdoms, as you can see that all of it came to pass. But also, here's some stuff from my personal collection. This is the Lamasian lion. I'll put that way up close where you can see this, those watching via YouTube. That was on the gates of Babylon. It is an extreme symbol of Babylonianism. Matter of fact, aside from the Ishtar worship that they had and those markings on the gate, the lions were a prominent feature. Now another thing is just to prove that not only that, but as you can see, a Babylonian head on it. Let me get that up close. Sorry for the glare. You can see a man's head on the line with wings. This is a Assyrian cylinder seal, and what they used to take is they take these little little round cylinders, and they'd etch markings on it. And when you rolled that out in clay, it would make a tablet or a seal and mark whatever the writings was they want on that seal. It'd come out in the clay tablet in a flat written form. It's a pretty neat form of writing. Took a lot of artistic skill. Well, that is a depiction, and the dream that Daniel had was of Babylon. That was the first beast. Then he goes on to explain in Daniel chapter 7 verse 5 that there was another beast that come. It was a bear with 3 ribs in its mouth. Now if you'll go to Isaiah, and I should have had this in front of me, if you read the prophet Isaiah, you will find that King Cyrus, it says his name years and years and years before the man breathed his first breath on this earth. The Creator in heaven stated that he would come and he would destroy Babylon. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. The Medo-Persians diverted the waterways that ran into Babylon, and they went into the kingdom of Babylon by night, slew it, took it over, just a mass overthrow of the kingdom. And guess who was leading the way? You've got Cyrus. And so anyway, the 3 ribs are very symbolic because Medo-Persia was broken up into roughly 3 provinces. It was Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. Now, we go on to find, though, that Daniel chapter 7 verse 6 states a third beast to come, and it was Greece. Now, the leopard with 4 wings is so significant it cannot be missed. Before I carry on any further, just one quick thing. If you want to Google this, once again, there's a glare. I'll try to get that up there. Yeah, it's not going to work. I apologize. It is a cylinder seal of King Darius, and this was an Egypto-Persian cylinder seal tablet. But if you'd like to look it up, it's also proof, just one simple archaeological fact, that King Darius was ruler over Medo-Persia. I mean, there's so much archaeology, it's just unbelievable. But anyway, moving on to Greece. Alexander the Great, when he rode into battle, he rode a very unique style. He had a leopard skin for a saddle. Pretty unique. He also wore some other significant things, but I just want to cover the leopard skin. Alexander the Great conquered the practical known world at the time with absolute speed. I mean, what Rome done after him was significant, but what one man done with an army of his size, he absolutely ran the world over. And whenever he took over the kingdoms of the known time, whenever he come to his deathbed, roughly 4 generals took over what he had done, and the 4 generals divided up the empire. Now, there you go, 4 wings. These things can't be made up. The Creator knew these were coming before they ever took place. Not only do you find in Scripture where the prophets name people by name before they were born, they name dates. They name specific points in time whenever things will take place after certain events. There's such precision in the Bible that it's amazing. We go on to find in Daniel chapter 7 verses 7 through 11 and verses 19 through 26 that there is another empire that comes, and it is Rome. It's diverse from all other kingdoms. As we read, we find the following identifying markers. We find that there is 10 horns, and that there is a little horn that comes up after them. We find that 3 horns are plucked up by this little horn. We find that it makes war with the saints. We find that this particular entity speaks great things against the Most High, has eyes of a man, thinks to change times and laws, and eventually the beast is to be slain. Now this, I want to pause for a second and explain to you that this is just the very beginning identification of the Roman Catholic Church, the great whore Babylon that sits upon 7 hills in Rome, and that is that mystery of iniquity. I want you to bear with me through this and not just click us off right now because I said that. Ladies and gentlemen, regardless of your denomination, regardless of your beliefs, I love you. But it's important that you understand the Scripture is very plain on who the enemy of our Creator is. And Satan has his servants on this earth, and they do have identification. And it's so important that we understand who is good and who is bad, because we don't want to be mixed up with that group whenever the Creator pours out His judgment upon Babylon and the servants thereof. I don't want to be in that group. I want to come out of her today so that I don't partake in her plagues and in her judgments. So anyway, the three horns that were plucked up by this entity, if you'll find that the Roman Empire, once it was broken up, that the Ostrogoths, the Heruli, and the Vandals were destroyed by the papacy, the Roman Catholic Church. We also find that this entity, as it arose, it was given immense power. When Constantine the Great gave his power from his pagan empire to a papal Rome, the Bishop of Rome, whenever he got his power, he got it via Constantine. Not only did he get immense power, but Constantine enacted a Sunday law. Now this is something I want you to understand and remember, put on the mind for later when we get into the Creator's calendar. Well, thanks to Constantine and his sun worshipping and his pagan idolatrous practices, he got a 7-day planetary week in place. And you'll also find that as time progresses, that the Sunday takes prominence as the first day of the week in that calendar, and it becomes the worship day by people being forced to worship that way. You'll also find people used to keep the what people call Easter now, that actually remembering the Passover and the Messiah's sacrifice. He also made sure to put a stop to that and have people keep the so-called Holy Easter, which we'll find it later Sabbath cast I'll do is nothing more than Ishtar worship. So anyway, the bishop in Rome was given an army and immense power. They also forced the Jews to abandon the LUNI-SOLAR calendar and go to a fixed calendar. Now I'll explain to you and prove to you later on the Creator's calendar that the Jews today will tell you that even though they still keep the feast by the LUNI-SOLAR calendar, the vast majority of them do Saturday just because that they were forced to do that on the planetary calendar a long time ago when they were forced by the Romans to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to see some of them are getting back to doing things by the old paths, as Jeremiah 6 and 16 states. It is time we wake up. Whether we're Jew or Gentile, it's time we do what does thus saith the Word. So anyway, since they don't have a Sanhedrin reassembled back today, that's why that many Jews have not gotten back to that practice. But I'll get to that on the Creator's calendar. Now, moving back, we find that this entity had eyes of a man and he spoke great things. I'm not going to say any of this right now because I want to say this for Revelation 13 and the Revelation chapter 17 study that we have. But I just want you to know that I've never found more blasphemous statements or more profound statements against the Creator and His kingdom than I've found from Roman Catholicism. I have never seen a man claim to have the power to forgive sins or to claim the power to put a man into the kingdom or take them out. I've never found so much blasphemy that I've found come from the mouth of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, as we sum this up, I want you to understand that all these points that signify was to take place that Daniel the prophet saw, almost every single one of them is fulfilled. We'll find in Revelation that it speaks of these 10 kingdoms giving their power to the beast. We'll find that the rulers of the world later, here very shortly in this at the coming time ahead, that they'll give their power to the beast and they'll make war against the saints. Now, that's already happened partially because the Roman Catholic Church killed many people because they wouldn't follow her dogma, her beliefs, follow the Pope and worship the beast in Rome. They burnt them at the stake. As we've covered, William Tyndale was killed for just getting the word of the people. They tried to kill Martin Luther. People were put in what was called this iron coffin. It's called the Iron Maiden. It was from the best I can look at it, it's like an image of Mary made into a coffin. It had stabbing pins so that when they pulled the trigger, it would shut and all the blood would come out of you because it would pierce you every single point that it could. They would skin people's flesh right off of them. And they found out, the Roman Catholics found that they could take the flesh off people right up to the point of getting it all off. Then they would die. People were put on the rack. People were burned at the stake. They were drowned. The list of tortures and murders goes on and on and on. Fox's Book of Martyrs is more graphic than I'd ever want to even begin to try to get into with you on this program. It's one of the few books I've never went from cover to cover. I'm going to be very honest with you right up front. Ladies and gentlemen, what the Roman Catholic Church has done to the true believers in Messiah it's incomprehensible. I'm going to be honest with you. I try to keep this program rated E for everyone, but it just sometimes you just can't keep it that way, because the Scripture is very, very upfront about these things. Now, until I see you again on the next Sabbath cast, I want you to take Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. I want you to take your history book and I want you to flip open and see that everything that came out of the mouth of Daniel was truth. Everything that was written in the Scripture was truth. And I want you to sit back for a minute and think to yourself that all the people that claim that the Bible's false and that these things just can't be, I want you to look and understand and think about it, that they are very much real. They have very much taken place. And we need to be ready. So until I see you again on the next Sabbath cast, have a most blessed day in Yahshua name.